else. The guys here, big hand for Eric. He's wearing the blue t-shirt, and everyone else that created this. But they make this really easy. So it moves up and down, lesson on the mic, and it easily adjusts.
Thank you. I'm Summer, and I'm going to read 2 letters from a 7-letter long essay. Letters to the Men. Dear Granddaddy, when I was barely old enough to walk, I waddled through your backyard, right up to your 2 German shepherds. You let them roll the yard, prowling around and lazing in the sun, chewing on their feet. They would always smell me too hard or snap at the sides of my diaper and scare me. I'd cry and call out for your help, and you'd shoo them away, rise from your chair on the porch where you smoked your cigarettes, pick me up from the ground where I threw my tantrum. But then you'd reprimand me, saying, one day I ain't gonna be there to call the dogs off of you, nobody will, wagging your big crooked finger in my face and looking me square in the eyes. Man up, you'd say. I was just a little girl, just 3 years old. Once you took me deer hunting, despite my mother's firm stance against it. I was taught to treat animals like people, gently scolded when I petted a cat too hard or held a dog a little longer than it wanted to be held. You dressed me up in camouflage and strapped a neon orange vest across my body. You carried the gun, I carried the mini cooler of beers. I don't know if you were planning to shoot anything that day, but as we bounced across a fallen tree like it was a bridge, I looked over and saw it. A deer's small corpse, covered in moss and flying bugs, rotting in the creek bed. I meant to ignore it, to prove to you that I could be a man and turn my back on things, but you caught me looking. You put your hand on my shoulder and with some trouble squatted next to me. And we just stayed there like that, for what seemed like hours. We both just watched. The flies going back and forth, the worms, the birds. And then you patted my back a little too hard. You stood, said, time to go. You were a daytime drunk. Everyone says you were good for nothing, and now that I'm older, I tend to agree with them. During that argument, the one when Grandma stabbed you in the chest with a fork and ran out the trailer door, she hid in the sunflower fields all night in fear of what you'd do. You didn't go looking for her. You took off your bloody shirt and told your daughters to do the laundry. Your argument would be, I made a man out of them. You made everyone around you hard, and to you, hard is the best thing a person can be. And who am I to say that you're wrong? Dear Papa, this I know about you. 1. You always smelled like stiff old leather. Even in the middle of a southern August, when the porch was the hottest place I could imagine, and a leather coat or pair of boots hadn't been seen in months, I smelled it all over the house. And for the rest of my life, I come to associate this smell with the smell of all men. At school, in grocery stores, especially men on TV. I imagine a young Clint Eastwood, his hard young face, your leathery scent. 2. You loved the soft power of a horse in your hands. I never saw you on one because your hips and knees and other joints took you away from them, but you talked about it all the time. You said you never felt more connected to your father or your father's father than when you were riding. It's what white men have been doing since the beginning of time, you said, taming the wild and running it around. If you could do everything while on horseback, you said, you would. I'm terrified of horses. I don't think I ever told you. I can't make myself mount one, always too afraid it'll run away with me on its back, take me off to someplace where no one can hear me scream. So I settled for the just not knowing, for the disconnect. 3. You've broken ashtrays over women's heads, countless women. Instead of triumphs and wise things said, this is what you're known for. You never did it to a man, not that anyone knows of. It was always a woman, and always in the privacy of your own home, behind closed doors. Some folks in the family try to deny it, say it's just urban legend, but the women closest to you know. Do you remember? All those times, like the time you sent my mother to the emergency room, remember? She was a teenager, and she had a smart mouth after you told her to get out of your face. She walked away from you, into her room, and slammed her door, and you picked up the nearest ashtray, a big, heavy glass one. You busted her door down and hit her once, one good time. That's all it took. If nothing else, Papa, you taught me not to smoke, to not leave ashtrays around the house, to never turn my back to men. Thank you.